All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of the Atlantic Strong podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Dickens, and tonight I've got Mark McManus, owner of Renfrew Strength and Conditioning. And if you don't know Mark, uh, if you compete in this area in strongman, you'll meet him eventually because that's where a lot of the competitions happen. Good evening, Mark. How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
So let's talk about you before we talk about Renfrew, because you have competed before in powerlifting, right?
Yep, I've competed in powerlifting, and I had a very brief stint in strongman.
So how did
So,
you get involved in strength sports personally?
so it started. It actually started out as uh, trying to get healthy and lose some weight. In back in December of 2006, and this is going to sound like I'm starting out with a sad story, but I'm not. It's not intended to be. Back in 2006, my father passed away at a rather young age of 56. At the time, I was 35, and I was in similar boat, overweight, smoked far too many cigarettes, and probably drank more than I should have as well, and decided I didn't want the same fate. So I joined a gym, Globo Gym kind of thing. Learned a little bit from a personal trainer there, and then basically ran into a rugby crowd, which consisted of family, and they convinced me to try playing rugby and at least come out to some practices and run around and probably lose a little bit of weight, and I certainly did. Played rugby for a few years, and we very quickly started doing sort of CrossFit-like workouts actually to get ourselves stronger and faster for rugby. And from there, like a lot of people in the CrossFit world, we just sort of learned about the barbell and went from there. First we had a little bit of training with Olympic lifting, and then fell in love with the power lifts and started powerlifting in probably 2008, 2009. I can't remember for sure. I competed in my first powerlifting competition down in Amherst, CPF competition, and then and that was when I get addicted. As I heard you say in all your podcasts so far, I met the crowd, I met the people, and loved it ever since. So.
Yeah, it's you find a pretty like-minded group of people quick at competitions.
You sure do.
You know, I was hooked from the very first one in powerlifting, and then even more so after the first Renfrew Strongman Open in 2019,
Yeah.
where I competed as a novice. I was hooked immediately.
Yeah, well, we were really excited about that meet. That was our first strongman meet. It was only our second strongman meet though, and it was the first one with weight classes. We introduced weight classes in that one, um, and we kind of did it because we were originally going to do a powerlifting competition, but then there was going to be a powerlifting competition in PEI that we didn't want to sort of step on any toes, or you don't want to have them too close together, especially with the same federation. So we said, well, so I was quite literally sitting around the house one night complaining to my wife that I was bored with a competition to plan. And she said, well, why don't you do a strongman competition? And I'm like, all right. So I threw it up. I expected we'd get 10 or 12 people. And as you know, we had 38, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was a packed crowd.
Yeah, I was very impressed with that competition. I was very impressed with the level of competitors that were there, and all the new people that showed up. So
yeah, it was a good competition. It was run really well. Hats off to you guys for putting it on.
Thank you.
Same with the Heavier Than Hell weekend back in March. That was fantastic.
That by far has been. We've run a couple of Atlantics that went really well and we really liked, but the Heavier Than Hell weekend, the whole weekend, that was sort of been a bit kind of our crowning achievement, as it were. Right now, we really, we had a really good time running it there. There was a great crowd, great competitors, both on the strongman day, on the powerlifting day, on Sunday. And it was really unfortunate the way that event turned out, not the event itself, but a situation after that event, because we generated a lot of interest in strongman, especially that day, just from people in the crowd, and with both with us and with Prime Strength there. We both talked to lots of people, gave out lots of business cards, and we're really sort of hoping to run a bit with the momentum of that. And then a week later, we shut down our gym. So
Yeah.
so it was unfortunate timing from that perspective, but it was a great competition, and we really had a great time with that one.
So when was your last powerlifting competition that you competed at?
Oh God, that was far too long ago, actually. CPF Nationals, when Amherst hosted it, Amherst Powerlifting Club hosted it 3 years ago now. I kind of ended up taking over running CPF competitions, and now we'll talk about it more later, I'm sure, but now WPC competitions, and it just found it too hard to compete in them when I was running them. So
Yeah.
I've actually sort of dialed in my training a little bit for the first time in a long time here, and I really hope to compete in my own competition coming up in November. So
Awesome.
my my return to the platform in a long time. I hope I don't disappoint myself too much.
So how did Renfrew Strength and Conditioning come about? I know that you're not the only owner, are you?
No, there's three of us, myself. So I guess I've sort of become a bit more of the face of it.
Yeah.
Brandon Horn, who most people probably know who he is, and another younger gentleman, Evan Dickey, who Evan's our workhorse. Anytime we need something moved or something done, he just does it. But he wants very little to no recognition that he's even around. So but the three of us, we sort of banded together early on. So how did it start? I guess when we started doing training for rugby, we needed a place to train, and the local gym wasn't really what we wanted. Like I said, we were trying to do CrossFit type things back then. There were no CrossFit gyms then, not that I know of at least. So we set up a gym in my garage at my house, squat rack, bench. We had tires and sleds and stuff that we used over in my side yard, and sort of went from there. And within, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, we had pretty near 20 people training in my garage, and it was noisy and dirty. And my wife, I can't say she didn't like it. That would be an exaggeration, but it got a little intrusive sometimes. So I talked to Brandon and Evan and said, why don't we give this a go, see what we can do? So sort of went from there. We started out, luckily had a lot of really good friends that were already training here in my place, and access to a rugby team with lots of good friends, and we're able to kick it off pretty good with right from the start. So,
What year was that?
2014, September 2nd, 2014. So almost exactly 6 years.
Wow. And you're on your second location now.
Second location, yeah. We spent 5 years at the first location. It was the location treated us well. Unfortunately, it was a bit of an older building. We were surrounded by garages and body shops, so
Yeah.
we had some fume issues and things like that we didn't really like. The rent was a little higher than we really wanted, and we sort of locked into this place we're at now, where it's cheaper rent, newer building, windows. So now we get bright light.
Is it far from your original location? I've only been to
It's like a 2-minute drive.
Okay.
So yeah, no. It's actually better for visitors, at least, because it's right off the highway now. So if you're coming from Halifax, Dartmouth, or Truro direction, it's literally like seconds off the highway now. So
Okay. So what was the first competition, powerlifting or strongman, that Renfrew hosted?
our first powerlifting competition was I'm trying to remember the year. I should have looked this up. I knew this question would come. I should have looked it up. That was probably our second year, so it was probably 2016, and it was an IPA push-pull competition, and that was, again, Amherst Powerlifting Club was still around then, and they were sort of getting out of hosting CPF and starting to try to bring IPA into the Maritimes. I expressed interest to the owners at the time. I was actually a member of Amherst Powerlifting Club as well. That Renfrew would love to run a meet, and it was actually a world qualifier because Amherst that year or the next year Amherst was hosting worlds here for the IPA. So we did
I
a
remember that.
so we did a push pull IPA meet for our first one. Super smooth. I stressed about it for weeks. I spent every night, my wife can attest to this, every night in front of the computer learning the software inside and out so that there wouldn't be any problems on meet day. And I didn't sleep for about a week because I didn't want to screw up our first meet. And
Yeah.
And I didn't, honestly. We didn't. We did a great job, I think. It went really super smooth. Got lots of great feedback, and then from then, uh, we almost enjoy hosting them as much as we enjoy competing in them now. So
Yeah, it seems to me that if you can get a good core group of volunteers, that powerlifting meet is I shouldn't say easy because it's not easy. I volunteered at them before with the MBPL, and it's definitely difficult. But if you can get together a group of people that all are on the same page as to what's going to happen that day, it can go pretty smooth. It's smoother than you think it will.
yeah, well, so for us, it came down to, we spent a lot of time organizing it, figuring it out. We did have the help of Amherst Powerlifting Club at the time, just to provide support, provide some help, come up and do some judging, and and again, me and Brandon and Evan, we each sort of took on our own roles and ran with it from there. And I think I'll say any competition, the key to running any competition smooth is to have a good platform crew, whether that's your powerlifting platform crew. We've run a couple of Olympic weightlifting meets now too. Have the right people up on that platform and the right people, like with strongman, again, moving those weights, putting things back, loading things up. And if you get the right crew that will just do it without, just know what to do.
Yeah.
And we've had the same people do it now since 2014 or 2016. It's sort of almost it's a bit of pride for those guys. Now that they go out there and they keep them moving no matter what. They get the plates on, they get the collars on, and if something goes wrong, just handle it in stride, just fix it and keep moving.
So what was the first strongman competition that you were involved in running?
That was Atlantics in Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man in 2018. Grant Connors started coming to the gym not too long before that. We just got talking, and I had competed in that year. Or the year before, sorry, I had competed in my first and only strongman competition at this point, which was Nova Scotia Provincials. And then I, kind of got to know Grant as time went on, and I finally just said, he helped me collect some strongman equipment to have at Renfrew, and then I just mentioned that we'd love to run a strongman competition sometime if he wants us to, or wants some help with one or something. And at that point, he had been running Atlantics, and I think he's been doing it for so many years. He kind of was looking for, I don't want to say looking for an out, but wanted someone else to take it on. And again, he was sort of single-handedly running them and competing in them and doing all that. So I think he was more than happy to have someone take it over. We had a crew of people to help out to move stuff. So anyway, we ran Atlantics that first year, sort of the way Grant's always run them, with just basically an open weight class, men and women. And the competition went great. It went smooth. We loved doing it, but we only had like 16 competitors total or something like that, or 15 competitors total. Again, because it was just the single weight class, the weights were pretty heavy and all that kind of jazz. So, and then the next year after the Renfrew Open, first Renfrew Open was sort of our first experiment with weight classes, and we know how that went. And then the next year we did Atlantics the same way with the same weight classes, and had almost 50 competitors. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I'll say the only mistake you made with that first Strongman Open was underestimating the women
Yes.
on the yoke carry.
Yes.
Because I remember the show was going so good and so fast. Like that's the almost the measurement of a competition is how fast it is.
Yeah. Oh.
We were rolling right through, and we skipped lunch, and then we got to the yoke, and it was max yoke. If you don't make the distance, you're out. But the lightweight women started at 400 or 450, and went. A couple of them went all the way up until the heavyweight novice men.
Yeah.
Just kept going and going and going.
A couple of them carried over 600 pounds, and I was actually getting. You're absolutely right. We measure a competition by how smooth it goes and how quick can I get my volunteers back home. so because when competition's over for the athletes, we still have a couple hours worth of work to do. So
Yeah.
we want to when it's in the gym, it's not so bad because we can just say, all right, we'll do it in the morning. But if we're not there, but anyway, I digress a bit. But yeah, after that event, I vowed that I would never do a max yoke again. I'm sure we will sometime, but it will start way heavier than that one did.
Oh, it was just it was no fault of your guys, but the women, they just kept going.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
they added 50 pounds a run, and they
Yeah.
just kept going.
Yeah.
And then the lightweight, and then there was one lightweight man who went all the way up to the open men.
Yep.
I can't remember his name.
I'm trying to think of his name too. I know who I can picture him, but I can't think of his name either. So.
Yeah, older guy. I say older guy, but he's probably late 30s. Yeah, he was a lightweight man, and he went all the way up to the open men, and the open men started at 800.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably the only competition that have been involved in, either as a spectator or as an organizer, that I started hoping people would just fail. You just got to fail now so we can move on.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was pretty awesome. There was amazing weights moved. We learned our lesson for that at least, and we move forward, and we learn from every one we do now. So, and each one gets smoother and better and faster.
Yeah.
And heavier. So.
Yeah. So you organized last year's. Let's talk about last year's Land Canada Strongest Man, because that was, for those that don't know, that ends up being was a 2-day competition, right?
Yep. Yep.
You had over 50 competitors last year.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, it was right around 50.
And that is due in part to the weight classes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's so much more accessible now, strongman is, than it was in the past, with more competitions having even a couple weight classes for men and women.
Yeah, so all we've done so far is just split them to lightweight and heavyweight. And I can't remember the split for the women. It's usually around 180 pounds. And for the men, it's 220 pounds. And then we do that split, which makes 4 categories. And then we do an open category in each, which is the heaviest category. And in Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man, although things have changed a bit, unfortunately, but it used to be that the top man and top woman in the open category got invites to the CSM Canadian National Pro Circuit. Unfortunately, there's been changes there that I won't try to get into. I don't understand it as much as I should. But so there was sort of something to compete for there, and there was cash prize at Atlantics. There was cash prizes in that category. But again, because you're going to the pro circuit, it's got to be heavy. Like you can't, I can't give those heavyweight guys a 400-pound yoke to carry, and then go to nationals and have to try to carry a 900-pound yoke. So so they got to have kind of big numbers, but that keeps, like you said just now, and in your previous podcast, that keeps a lot of people out of it. If you can't go in there and pick up an 800-pound yoke, and quite frankly, how many people can? I mean,
yeah,
I know you can, and I can, but there's not a whole lot of people. And I can only pick it up. I can't carry it. So when you start looking at that, and you see in the gym, you see all these people who are very excited to pick up a stone and try the yoke and use the farmer's handles, but yet they can't compete because the numbers are so. You just have to figure, how do we do this? So we just said, let's do this. And it's kind of amateur. There was no cash prizes for that. They get a nice trophy, of course, and everything. And then as soon as I did that, man, it filled up fast, and that was an exciting competition, that Atlantics that year. Like you said, it's 2 days, 7 events. We did, we did we did everything: yoke, sandbag toss, carry and load medley. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, I was really sad to miss that one. I was going to go up to open for that one, and then I herniated a disc in my back.
Oh, I remember that actually.
Yeah, the you know I looked at that. I did the amateur at the Renfrew Strongman Open, and then I looked at the events for Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man, and my reasoning, looking at the events, was okay. Can I go to Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man and finish one event? If I can finish one event, I'm gonna go.
Right.
And I forget what the event was now. It might have been the yoke, because I did do pretty good at the yoke at the Renfrew Open. I think it was the yoke. I said, well, I can go and I can finish the yoke. So I'm going to go open and do Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man. And then very first training session for Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man, herniated disc in my back.
Oh no.
But, it's all good now. And I did the open at Heavier Than Hell. And it's quite a jump going from the novice weights to the open weights. But
Well, it's hard
exclusive somehow.
From our perspective. It's kind of hard trying to figure out the weights. I'm getting a little better at it now, and again, I draw on resources like Grant Connors to help a lot. But for the open category, it's easy because you just make it heavy and and go. But again, heavyweight men, you're thinking you're going to get guys anywhere from 220 pounds up to whatever, 300 plus, 350 plus even. So you want to keep it light enough to be as inclusive as possible, but yet heavy enough to challenge everybody. So again, with that group, you don't want to give them a 400 or 450 pound yoke, just to include everybody, because the guys like you it's just going to be a joke weight for you, right? So, it's kind of tricky to keep that balance so that you can be sure to hit as many people as you can that really want to try it, and be at least somewhat successful. But you just said something really interesting when you were deciding what to do with Atlantics, and this is something that I tell people all the time, and it would be nice to sort of really get across. The difference in strongman compared to something like powerlifting, or a lot of things, is there's typically a minimum of 5 events. I know Picto has an event with only 3, but usually there's at least 5 events, so you don't have to be good at them all. You can be good at one and still, and then be half good at others, or just good enough to not zero at others, and still fare pretty well in a strongman competition.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fun of a strongman competition. And you never know what's going to happen on the day. It's like some amazing things happen on the day at a strongman competition. And I've heard you guys talk about them in some of your previous podcasts, and lots of people, like the day of, man, people find some strength.
Oh yeah.
It's like things they just didn't know they had in them, and then they just do it. And sometimes, me sitting behind the scorekeeper's table watching it, and I just get amazed what I see. So.
My takeaway has been so far, after having a good performance in an event, I go back and go, geez, was I really training that hard? If my performance in the gym isn't anywhere as near the performance that I did on the competition day, was I sandbagging it and I didn't even know it?
Well, it's just the atmosphere at a competition, and this is true for powerlifting and strongman, in my experience, is you get strongman is even a little bit more, because you get some of those top competitors in our area, and they're up on the platform, running beside you while you're carrying the yoke, screaming at you to finish, and it's like you don't want to let them down. Plus you're getting the encouragement, and then something like Heavier Than Hell weekend, you get the crowd around. I was blown away at one point at Heavier Than Hell. I was just, again, behind the score table, and I looked up and I looked at the crowd, and I went, I got to get up and take a picture of this. And I don't know what was going on at the time. I just walked around and took a video of the audience. There had to be 500 or 600 or 700 people there watching us. I was just blown away by that. That area, it was pretty compact, and so the people were pretty close to the competitors, and it made it for a really, really interesting and really fun a feel to the competition. And I'm sure that for all you competitors, that was part of it. It's like, all these people are watching, I can't screw up.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
it was great to watch them kind of from the first event to the last event, see how many people had come over from the other
Yeah.
booths to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So one
that
thing I
was
learned at that event, if we ever do that one again, which I really hope we do, that was a great venue, is we'll start a little later in the day, just because the crowds really started to come at like 11, and we had already been lifting for 2 hours by then. So
yeah.
so
When we started, the place was almost empty.
yeah, yeah, we kind of started at the same time the event, the motorcycle event started. So give it a couple hours, and let the crowds come in, and then the noise of the tire slamming on the ground will start to attract them.
Yeah. So you guys aren't doing the OSG qualifier anymore.
No, I think it's kind of it's kind of upsetting. I was really excited when Grant first brought that to us. The qualifier for the biggest competition in the world, like quite literally. I mean, the OSG last year had 253 competitors or something. It's crazy. I don't know if you watched any of it, but it was an amazing event. So I kind of thought when he brought that to us, and sort of Atlantics had passed, in that the Tide Fest festival that we always have Atlantics at was canceled, and we knew it was going to have to be small. And it's not like I still didn't want to host it, but that seemed like a good opportunity to run another big event this summer, hopefully, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's all kinds of reasons why people, there wasn't the interest. But part of what I was hoping would happen, to be honest, was that maybe the national borders would open up a little bit. We could draw some internet or some national competitors from across Canada. That didn't happen, and rightly so. But that didn't happen. There was, I think, the schedule while we were still in it was like, there's Picto, us, and then the two events at Prime. And just a couple weeks before that was the event at Raw Power. So it was a lot of events in a row. And in the end, it was very heavy. It was the heavy, when I was writing down those numbers for that event, I'm like, holy
Yeah.
shit, who's going to, I was trying to picture in my head, who's going to be able to do this? Who's going to be able to do this?
Well,
Again, so those numbers, like I looked at, those events were pretty much the same events, or a combination of events that were used in the last two OSG games. And the numbers were 10% less, 10 to 15% less than what they used down there. So again, if you're going to compete in that event, you better be ready for it. So, I didn't want to make it light and then have our competitors end up, on the chance that they were able to go down there to compete, go down there and then just look like, well, where'd these guys come from? They can't even pick up the yoke, kind of thing, because that looks bad on us, not just Renfrew, but Atlantic Canada. Atlantic Canada struggles in the strength sports as far as sort of trying to get known and get our competitors out there. So you wouldn't want to send them to a world event and not be able to do anything. So
yeah. Yeah, and when I first saw the events and the weights, I'm like, oh, there's only a couple of guys around that are even going to finish this whole competition.
Yeah, no, it was going to be tough, and that's why I hoped, again, if the national borders, provincial borders opened up a little bit, that we could maybe draw some people from across the country. But even for that, quite frankly, it came to us late. It didn't come to us until like late into July, and here we're trying to plan an event of that size, in 2 months without people having the time to train for it.
Yeah.
So we'll try it again next year, see what happens, and maybe including some novice divisions, just to attract people, and then maybe get our own Atlantic Canada calendar spaced out a little bit better too, so that you don't have event every weekend for 5 weekends in a row, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, because of COVID is why it shook out like this. Normally.
Oh yeah, and everybody wants to run event Prime, starting with Raw Power. Like, I mean, they run their friendlies and they do an amazing job doing it. Prime wanted to get in the game, obviously, and I don't blame him. So he wanted to get his events in. I was considering putting a novice division in the OSG qualifier, just to try to attract more people. And next thing I see, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but then I see an announcement from Prime that they have an amateur or a novice competition the weekend before Atlantics, which was the weekend after OSG. And I'm like, oh, well, there goes that opportunity. So I was a little bit too slow on that one. But again, I don't mind. I think, it's great to have other venues like Prime and Raw Power with these, so we can spread these events around. You don't want to have everybody coming to the same event at the same location all the time. It just kind of gets old. So.
Yeah, yeah, and if we can have more events across the whole calendar year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if we can start having them then to have smaller events in the winter and some bigger events in the nicer weather, get them outdoors and stuff. And
Yeah,
that's great. So
and I mean the CAASA was supposed to have an event last Saturday, and that got
yeah,
canceled.
yeah,
But New Brunswick Powerlift Association had their provincials on Saturday,
yeah. I saw that.
and
That's great.
from everything that I saw, went pretty good.
Yeah, looked like it went smooth. So
Yeah.
you didn't compete. You weren't there.
Well, I was gonna do the CASA show,
Oh yeah, right.
and then that got moved from Amherst to Moncton, and then canceled. And I just they were trying to plan a competition from Ontario and Atlantic Canada, and didn't work out.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'll keep my comments on that to myself for this show.
We'll talk after we stop recording.
Yeah.
So, do you think that you'll plan more competitions this year?
We've already started planning hopefully our next strongman competition for early in the new year. Again, it's too early to tell what's going to happen with something like the Heavier Than Hell weekend. We really would have liked to make that an annual thing at the bike show, but again, we'll have to see how something like the bike show, in March, just a few short months away, will they be able to have an event of that size?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell in the current situation. I keep referring back to your previous podcast, and I'll admit I rewatched them all very recently just to get get a feel for it after you asked me to do this. So they're all fresh in my mind. But you commented on one of them that here they're starting to talk about COVID and all this kind of thing, and you were thinking just like, and trust me, I was thinking it every day. Are they going to shut down that bike show? And I'm going to have to cancel this competition.
Well,
and then they did, and then everything shut down literally like the day after, kind of thing. So
yeah, I had just got back into the country the week before.
Yeah.
And we were kind of, yeah, I was with two other guys in the UK for work, and we were coming back through Heathrow the week before Heavier Than Hell. It was already starting to get tightened up. A lot of people were wearing masks.
Yeah.
And when we got back here, I got back the Saturday before Heavier Than Hell, and I'm like, every morning I woke up, I expected to see an announcement that it was going to get canceled.
Yeah.
And then it happened, and it was awesome, and the bike show was awesome, and then the following Monday everything got shut down.
Yeah. Well, I was basically in the same boat every morning, waiting for a message from the bike show organizers that they had to cancel it. So, and it never happened. So, I was pretty happy about it. I remember thinking even a few times, because they were just starting to talk a little bit about social distancing and all that kind of stuff. And nobody was taking it serious, at that point, really. I guess we all probably should have been, but nobody really was. But I remember thinking a few times in that show, I'm like, there's no distancing here. not at our show, not at the bike show in general. But yeah, thankfully it went off, and like I said, it's been to this point, it's our crowning achievement in strongman, I think. So.
Oh yeah, I think if you can replicate that in the competitions to come, you'll be doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, what we've discovered, I mean, both Atlantics we've hosted at another festival. It's called Tide Fest here in East Hants. So having it in the middle of something else going on where there's already lots of people, you just sort of draw the fans. And it's interesting at the Atlantics, the first one, we did everything except the truck pull inside in an arena. We had big screens for the scoreboards. It was very professional looking show, if I do say. I mean, those screens were up for the concert that was going to go on that night and everything, and we just got to use all the gear. And then the next year we did a few more events outside. We just had a speaker and a microphone to do announcing. And this year we were going to do every single event outside because we just found that the fans just they crowded around, they cheered louder. There was more of them, or at least it looked like there was more of them because you weren't in this big, arena kind of thing. So we were going to sort of abandon all that sort of nice professional stuff just to do it outside with a TV screen and a microphone, just because it's better, it looks better for the fans, and it's more fun for us, even for us. Like when I'm standing there judging and I look up and I see that many fans around, I'm just, it just feels good to see that happening. So.
Yeah, I talked the week before last with Marco McLeod, who does the Picto Strongest Man, and they always have it at the end of the, the county fair or the agriculture fair. And he said that they get an unreal amount of people watching on a Friday night.
Yep.
For a 3-event competition that kind of leans into the farmer fisherman county fair aspect of the grassroots of strongman, to the point where they have, some people might not know this, they have cash prizes at Pictou County Strongest Man because everybody's there.
Cash prizes, strongman. I mean, I've never ever considered cash prizes in powerlifting before. And then, strongman comes around and you start talking to some guys like Grant Connors and others that have traveled across the country and around the world for that matter, competing. And you hear about some of the cash prizes and you're like, gee, how do these people get the money to do this? Because, I'd love to be able to do that, like give out big prizes. At Atlantics the last 2 years, we gave $1,500 to first place, top man and top woman, and then 1,000 and 500 going down the scale. But again, we had the support of a big event like Tide Fest, and they're attracting big sponsorships for that anyway. So, but doing it on your own and trying to get that kind of money, I don't. Yeah. Quite frankly, I don't know how to do it. I wish I did, but.
Oh yeah, I empower, and like people that only powerlift will not know that there's nothing in powerlifting.
No.
There's nothing. Like I thought I'd hit the jackpot when I was going head to head with a guy in a bench only, and one of us was going to win SPD wrist wraps.
Yeah.
I've hit the big time. I could win SPD wrist wraps.
Yeah. Well, if you're winning SPD gear, you kind of are hitting the jackpot.
Holy cow! Are you ever?
Yeah.
So you guys are going to do a powerlifting competition this year.
Yeah, we have one scheduled for November 7th. It's already filling up fast. There's a lot, again, because of COVID and things getting shut down in the spring. There's a lot of people chomping at the bit to compete right now. So we're doing one. It's going to be a WPC Canada meet. So WPC Canada formed sort of from the CPF. Without getting into too many details, there was the metal gear incident. I don't know if you know much about that.
Yep.
Sort of happened, and WPC took one stance on it, which was sort of the umbrella federation that the CPF was under, and the CPF took another stance on it with regards to banning logos versus outright banning gear and all that kind of stuff. It's not my place to get into which one's right or wrong. But I think that the CPF had changed enough rules over the years that were sort of different from what the WPC was doing, that was sort of the straw on the camel's back, and the CPF, and so the WPC went and formed their own WPC Canada. And what I really liked about that for us was that they immediately contacted us, and not just us, but meet directors from across the country and people to get on the board to represent basically all the regions across the country, all the provinces, and the Atlantic region is one, of course, but and sit on the board, and CPF never did that. So we were really excited about that. I sat in on like an hour and a half meeting with all the meet directors from across Canada with WPC to decide how we're going to run meets going forward and things like that. Anyway, it was really good. We were really happy to make the choice to switch and start with the WPC people, and yeah, so now we're going to have a meet, hopefully 40 plus competitors. At this rate, we might have as many as 50 or 60 the way things are coming in. We have to change up how we're going to run it a bit, of course, given social distancing rules and masks and all that kind of stuff. But I think we've got that figured out, so it should be
fun. I mean, the MBPL, which is CPU, I looked at their protocol or what they were going to do on meet day, and I think it went pretty good for them.
Yeah.
They had pretty strict protocol as to who can be there and who can't be there, and where you can stand and where you got to wear a mask and where you don't. And they had even to the point where they had mapped out their route going into registration, weigh-in, gear check.
Yeah.
So everything was one way in and out of the building.
Yeah. That's,
So, yeah.
yeah. No, that's exactly what we have to do. You can't, too many lifters, or I shouldn't say, lots of lifters sometimes come with the whole entourage of handlers and coaches, and we can't have any of that. You get one, you can bring your coach or your handler or whatever you want, but that's sort of the end of it. But even they're not going to be all that welcome in the warm-up room, not all at once at least. We're going to have loaders and spotters in the warm-up room this time, so that we only have a small set of people touching plates, that kind of thing. Masks for all our spotters and loaders, of course, and all the judges. And we're not going to provide the conversion charts. You get, which everybody should have that on their phone anyway. So, so that we don't have a whole bunch of people touching, sharing the same piece of paper around and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a little different. And in some ways, my OCD organizer kicks in, and I love it because, some of the things are just like, oh, that's just going to get rid of that annoyance. That thing that, the fact that, some lifters bring an entourage with them, and my warm-up room's crowded all the time, it really drives me nuts. So now I have an excuse to put a stop to it. So, and I understand why that happens, but, sometimes things get crowded and you don't really, it makes it a little harder for other lifters. So this way it's just, it'll make it.
Which is, some things I've noticed about powerlifting meets so far is that you get crowded, and man, is it annoying. Like, especially if you look around when you're volunteering, you look around at the other volunteers and what's going on. You're like, why are people walking behind the judges table?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why is there 4 people in the warm-up room that aren't competitors right now?
Yeah, I've learned over the years, I have no problem walking into a warm-up room and using my big boy voice to clear it out. It's where it really becomes annoying, or annoying, I shouldn't say annoying, where it really becomes an issue, I found, and I found this in my first couple meets, is to the new lifters back there. It's overwhelming anyway, and if you're in a warm-up room warming up with a guy who's going to squat 700 pounds and you're going to squat 350, and you're trying to get your warm-ups in anyway, and then there's extra noise and extra people, and you're scared to talk to anybody, that's hard as it is. And then if you get too many people in the way, and everybody wants to be helpful, but if you're a brand new lifter, you don't know that. You don't know that you can talk to any of these guys or girls and get something out of them. So until the ice is broken there, it can be pretty intimidating trying to get your warm-ups in again with that, that guy squatting 700 pounds next to you, or trying to share a bar with them. What's worse, right? So, and then on top of that, 10 or 12 extra people chatting and standing in the way and stuff. So I kind of look forward to those rules in a way, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So do you have a date set for that one yet?
That's November 7th. It's going to be at the gym. I shouldn't say this out loud. We're kind of hoping. Last year, the fall classic that we had was on November 3rd, and it was like 20 degrees outside. It was a beautiful day. We're kind of hoping for something similar, and we're hoping to do part of the meet outside. To be honest,
perfect.
More room. Rent a big circus-like tent and see what we can do. Just give us a little more space, and plus it'll be a little bit different and a cool atmosphere.
So for any powerlifters listening that want to scratch their competition itch, Renfrew's hosting a WPC Canada meet on November 7th, and the Nova Scotia Powerlifting Commission is going to host their CPU provincials on November 14th.
So that one's full already. So
is it full?
That filled up in hours, quite literally. I was like, oh, damn, why didn't mine fill up that fast? But the CPU and the NSPL, they've got a very large membership, which is awesome. And a lot of people were really looking to compete. And I think the New Brunswick one filled up quick, and it filled up, like I said, hours. I think it filled up. So now they do have a waiting list. So anybody that really wants to compete in the CPU, get on that waiting list. And they said if they get, I think I just read a post today, if they get at least 15 on that waiting list, they'll do another one either later in November or early December. I can't give a date because I don't know, but they'll do another one right away.
And the PEI Powerlifting Commission always does, who knows what they'll do this year, but the CPU affiliate in PEI always has 1 or 2 meets towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll come up with something for another CPU meet.
I think it's amazing that we can have our meet on the 7th, and we're gonna at least have 40 people and probably 50 plus. The CPU meet filled up at 40 people instantly. They're talking about having a second one. PEI can do too. Like to have that many powerlifting meets that close together. It's amazing that we have that many lifters. I mean, a few years ago, it wasn't even close to being able to do that. So I think it's great.
Yeah,
Another thing, if you don't mind me plugging my meet just for a second, another thing
no,
that I'd
not
like
at
to
all.
just throw out there is that the WPC is a federation friendly federation. So we don't care what federation you're really affiliated with. We don't have membership fees. We just want people to come lift. So if you're ever, for those of you who without trying to take away from anything else, who usually compete in the CPU, who are really looking for something to try something, maybe try knee sleeves or knee wraps for the first time in a competition. Where if you're not a geared lifter, then come on out and give it a shot at the WPC. We actually have a few CPU lifters coming in this meet just for that reason, to see what it's like to squat in a competition with knee wraps.
I
And
hate it.
have to put on a multiply suit to do so.
They're the worst. I don't know why people do that.
I love them. I hate training with them, but I like them in competition. So.
I tried it once and I probably didn't wrap them right. So maybe if I get together with somebody who used them more often and got a little bit of guidance, I would like them. But
Yeah, they're painful.
yeah,
But I can, when I haven't used them really any amount, again, because I don't, it's a pain in the butt to use them in training. But when I competed last, I probably was getting about 40 pounds, 45 pounds of my squat out of them. So,
yeah. The first time I used them, I got probably 20 pounds out of them,
yeah.
more than I normally would, and it was a pretty loose wrap because I was doing it myself for the first time. But even a loose wrap was painful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Some of these guys that, and I've been in the situation where you crank them on in the, in the waiting area. And then, if there's a little delay before you get called to the bar, your feet are purple by the time you get up there, and you're like, just call the start command so I can go.
Yeah.
So,
It's it's nice to see that there's a spot for everybody to compete.
yeah. And
Now,
that's what it's about. I mean, that's why, we kind of fell into the CPF, now the WPC thing. But, from my perspective, this gives a spot for everybody. We have the tested and untested divisions and stuff. So, if you're so inclined to go that route, the untested route, and you want to see what you can do in that area, then, there's a place for you. And from my point of view, personally and professionally, I don't give a shit what you do. That's all. It's all your choice. So, and I want to make sure that there's a place for everybody. So.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're in the Maritimes and you want to compete in powerlifting, no matter what your preference, uh, you know, using steroids, not using steroids, knee wraps, single ply, multiply, raw, whatever you want, there's a place for you to compete.
Yeah.
You just got to look and find it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd really like to see more multiply lifters come in the Maritimes. I mean, I'd like to be one of them myself. Cost is a huge barrier. That
Yeah.
gear is not cheap, but and that's my own personal barrier at the moment to getting into stuff. But I personally really want to get into it, and I really love seeing just watching them in training in the gym and watching them at a meet. These guys, they take some level of dedication to train with that gear. I mean, single ply, multiply, both of them. Like it's a lot of training. It's a long time in the gym. It's a lot of bruises and stretch marks to deal with. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
My barrier now would be there's nobody in my area that uses bench shirts or squat suits.
And that's another. It's hard. You can't. I had a shirt for a little while, and I played around with it, and so after a couple of bench sessions, I benched 500 pounds in a multiply shirt, which is nowhere near my max. And I don't want to. It certainly wasn't an easy thing to get to, because learning how to use that shirt, and I never would have been able to do it by myself. I had Lucas Chapman and Matt Watson around here to help me out. And a good team of spotters at the gym, so that, when you're benching something that a weight that you can't handle without that shirt on, if it doesn't go right, you gotta be, you want to hope that the people spotting you know what they're doing. And again, we have that at Renfrew because they're the same guys that do the meets. So,
Yeah.
you don't want to throw on a shirt and then throw 150 pounds more than your raw max on a bar and try that by yourself. You're likely going to get hurt. So.
Yeah. Yeah. People that don't know, that shirt used improperly wants to push that weight up to your face.
Oh yeah. Used improperly, you're going to get hurt bad
Yeah.
if you don't have the right people around to help you, for sure.
I'd love to try it sometime.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, and if you listen to the West Side guys, for example, like they say, if you want to move weight, if you want to squat 1,000, if you want to, there's a few, and they're freaking impressive, that's for sure. But there's very few people out there squatting 1,000 plus raw and benching 600 plus raw. There's a few, and those guys are, amazing. I'd love to see them in person. I'd love to see them at one of my meets someday. Yeah, if you want to move those big numbers, the gear's the way to go.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place to stop. We've been talking for almost an hour.
Yeah.
We could probably talk for a couple more, but it's getting late.
It is.
So everybody listening, this has been the Atlantic Strong podcast with Mark McManus, part owner of Renfrew Strength and Conditioning. Once again, they're going to do a WPC Canada powerlifting meet on November 7th. So I'm sure you can find registration details on Renfrew's Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for putting so much into promoting strongman and powerlifting in the area, because your shows that I've been involved in so far have been awesome, and I hope to do a lot more.
I hope we can do a lot more for you.
And so good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. And actually, I'm recording another one tomorrow night with Dave Prime. It'll be a short one because we're just going to preview the events at the Atlantic Canada Strongest Man. And then Wednesday night, I'm going to talk to, I don't have their names written down. I'm going to talk to a couple guys from Newfoundland about what's going on over there in strength sports. They're having their Newfoundland Strongest Man in a few weeks. They're also doing a Static Monsters event. So I'm going to talk to them about that. So good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Right.